This is CNN Breaking News.
More now in our breaking news coverage of the capture of Nicolas Maduro, the ousted Venezuelan leader, waking up this morning in the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, New York. That's where he will be facing eventually drug and weapons charges. Now, he could be arraigned as soon as tomorrow, and this after authorizing an attack on Venezuela and the arrest of Maduro. President Trump says that the U.S. will be seizing Venezuela's massive oil reserves and will be rebuilding the country's oil infrastructure. And with President Maduro out of the picture, President Trump insisting that the United States will also be in charge of Venezuela.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. It's largely going to be, for a period of time, the people that are standing right behind me. We're going to be running it.
Look at some of these scenes in South Florida where Venezuelans took to the streets to celebrate the capture of Maduro. But on the streets of Caracas, some Venezuelans protested the U.S. intervention and called for the return of their president. I want to discuss all of this with Vanessa Neumann. She's the former special envoy from Venezuela to the UK and Ireland. Vanessa, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's start with your reaction to President Trump's claim that the U.S. will be running Venezuela. What does that look like?
Well, nobody knows really what it looks like. I think that everybody expected that the United States would continue to be involved at least through some stage of a stabilization operation, which would be normal because the Venezuelan opposition and the democratic opposition does not have that capacity. But what was surprising for Venezuelans was the fact that he dismissed Maria Corina Machado, the Nobel Peace Prize and the most popular Venezuelan opposition leader in Venezuela, in both his interview in Fox News and his press conference last night. That was surprising. What was also very surprising and very worrying to Venezuelans is the fact that he said that he thinks that they can work with Delcy Rodriguez. As we know, Delcy has been positioning herself as the moderate, according to, I believe it was the New York Times, interview, feature on her, which she clearly has been doing some PR for months to position herself this way. And Venezuelans are sort of incredulous, thinking that leaving Delcy and then also Diosdado Cabello and Padrino Lopez, who are military commanders, behind would somehow be workable for the United States. Venezuelans know that that's not the case. And that's also why you're not seeing them take to the streets. The only people allowed to take to the streets in Venezuela, as you reported, are the ones in support of Maduro and the Maduristas. Everybody else has stayed quiet, has stayed hunkered down, has stayed mum, because repression, death, and torture and extrajudicial killings remain a reality for Venezuelans.
Yeah, and to your point, I heard from a Venezuelan who's seeking exile, or at least living in exile in the United States, who told me that those concerns are really what are fueling those fears. It's the remnants of the regime still in Venezuela, which is why they're essentially self-censoring. So on that, what is the prevailing sentiment on the ground in Venezuela in your view? And from what you've been hearing, is it relief that Maduro is gone, or is it anger at the U.S. for taking him away?
Confusion would probably be, if I had to choose one word, it would be confusion. On the one hand, the hopes have been inspired by the image of Maduro in handcuffs, blindfolded with the headphones on, in the Iwo Jima, and being walked as a perp, doing the perp walk, has been like, it's like a god being dethroned, coming down from Mount Olympus. This is a man who has forced, 9 million people to flee the country. 80% of his people have less than one meal a day. The 18,000 political prisoners under him, and some of the worst torture in the world. And suddenly he's human and just one more criminal. So it inspired hope in Venezuelans that they can see that democracy can come, that these people are capturable, and that they can be taken away. And they are not gods who are never necessarily there forever. The preoccupation is, of course, the fact that, as you say, that the remnants are there, and what this transition government looks like. To what extent will they work, and with whom will they work within the Venezuelan leadership? The Venezuelans who are obviously they would want to work with Venezuelans who are pro-U.S., but also have credibility within the Venezuelan people. Everybody assumed that would be Maria Corina Machado, and that Edmundo Gonzalez, who ran as effectively her proxy in the 2024 elections because Maduro wouldn't let her run, won in a 3-1 landslide. So it should be them entering Miraflores Palace. If President Trump is implying that there are some other plans to work with others, that's not clear. I want to take a moment and say there's one more point of confusion. Maria Corina Machado issued a statement yesterday, which everybody waited for with bated breath. Llegó la hora. The time has arrived. We are now free. This came after the capture of Maduro and before the Trump press conference. But there was no visual of her. It was only a black background in Instagram with her voice and a letter. And in the meantime, so Venezuelans are pinning their great hope on their great leader and Nobel Prize winner, who's only a voice in a letter. While on the other hand, you have the visual of Delcy Rodriguez, who's negotiator-in-chief and highly intelligent and very in charge of the finances of the Maduro regime, is sitting in Miraflores Palace instead of Maria Corina Machado. So that has brought up a lot of confusion and mixed emotions within Venezuelans, and the uncertainty is with whom the U.S. government will be working.
I thought that was perhaps one of the most shocking moments of some of the president's remarks when he referred to Machado and essentially seemed to distance himself from her. And just, I have a few more seconds with you. I'm curious, just if I could get your final thought. What do you see playing out the next few days and potentially the next few weeks, specifically in Venezuela and the surrounding region?
Well, a number of things. First of all, we can, as I said, Venezuelans are hunkered down because we can expect enormous repression, rounding them up and capturing and torturing anybody who says capturing Maduro was a good thing. People are shutting down their WhatsApp accounts so that they don't even receive messages of congratulations, just in case. They're closing down of the borders. I was talking to a Brazilian journalist last night. Has several reasons for Colombia and Brazil. You don't want a fleeing diaspora. You don't want a fleeing Venezuelans. You also don't want fleeing military who were complicit with the Maduro regime. Some of whom might be seeking asylum, and some of whom might cause trouble. Right, so within these flows of people, you might have some people who cause trouble for American assets in Colombia. Don't forget the U.S. Embassy in Bogota is the biggest in the region, in the hemisphere, one of the biggest in the world. And there are also assets in Colombia. So they could try an asymmetric sticking it to the U.S. that way. And those countries don't want that trouble. Lula, even though he's pro-Maduro, just doesn't want the trouble. Same with Petro. So I think we see that. We also see that the Team Trump will continue to try and dance with Delcy, but she will be leading the tango, and that they won't get. I don't anticipate they will get very far with her. And then I think also the other thing we might anticipate is that Diosdado Cabello and Padrino Lopez, who are the military commanders, might stick it to Delcy Rodriguez, might. Rhetorically stick a knife in her back and take her place, and then we would have to see a second wave and an escalation, military escalation by the U.S. and Venezuela again.
Vanessa Neumann, we have to leave it there, but you've given us quite the list of things to look out for, and certainly going to be Delcy Rodriguez is one to watch and see what happens there. Appreciate your time as always, Vanessa. Thank you.